Consider for a moment the impact of Columbus's quote-unquote discovery of America. Now, to some degree, Columbus has been discredited since when he arrived on what he thought was India, he was really in America. He didn't even know where he was. Some people have criticized the importance of Columbus's landing on North America based on the grounds that Leif Erikson arrived here hundreds of years before Columbus did. One of the problems with that Leif Erikson argument is that it didn't make a permanent difference in the interaction between cultures that Leif Erikson arrived in North America. None of the rest of Europe or Asia figured out about it. And there did not continue to be a permanent exchange of ideas, of diseases, of foods, of all sorts of different cultural aspects as a result of Leif Erikson's arrival in North America. Columbus's arrival, though, triggered a permanent alteration in the course of history for both what has come to be known as the Old World and the New World. Your book focuses primarily on the biological wing of what we've come to know as the Columbian Exchange, and that's just the massive exchange of information, of ideas, of culture, of religion, and of disease, and of foods that were the result, ultimately, of the contact on a permanent basis between the peoples of North America and the peoples of Europe and Asia and Africa. What I'd like for you to do, if you choose to answer the first of the two discussion questions, is just make an argument for which component of the Columbian Exchange you find to have been the most impactful. You'll want to consider alternatives and just make a brief argument about which one you think had the biggest influence. Some of you might argue disease, but don't get single-minded on one tract on that particular set of consequences. The result of diseases were huge, but think about foods as well. Pick whichever one you want. These questions are argument questions. They're opinion questions. I will not ever discount your grade on these discussions based on your opinions, provided that they're backed up by reasonable use of the evidence that you get from our course materials. The second thing I'd like for you to consider is the major differences that occurred between the two different principal areas of New England, or of English colonization in the North Americas. The colonies that I'm going to call New England, that would eventually become New England, that would be Massachusetts Bay and Plymouth, were founded for very different reasons, and actually later, quite a bit later, than the Jamestown colony, which was in Virginia. The Virginia and Chesapeake colonies were founded primarily, I'm calling the Chesapeake colonies Maryland and Virginia. Those were founded for a much different reason, and the reasons why the Chesapeake colonies and the Massachusetts area, the New England colonies, were so drastically different, were primarily driven by the reasons why they were established in the first place. The book goes into quite a bit of detail about how those motivations of the founders differed. What I'd like you to do is consider for a moment which of those colonies you think you'd rather lived in and why. You don't have to answer this second thing in your editorial response, but consider this as well. Why do you think it is that in your history books, that you, maybe not necessarily in the books per se, but in the course of your study of American history up to this point, you probably came across a lot more emphasis on the New England colonies, on Massachusetts Bay and on Plymouth and the Pilgrims and so forth, than you did on the Chesapeake colonies, even though the Chesapeake colonies were founded first. 1607 is when Jamestown was started. There was an attempt at colonization by the English in the 1580s in the Carolinas. Was a failure that we can discuss more at a later date. But the Pilgrims, as you know, didn't arrive in New England, in what's now Massachusetts, until 1620. So why do you think it is that they get so much more attention than those folks down in the Chesapeake? Just some things to consider be sure and take a look at the 2 questions that I've given you for your discussion this week. Pick one of them and write a short 250 to 500 word response with your opinion based on facts from your readings. Be sure to take a look at a few of your classmates' responses as well and reply to them. Maybe engage in some congenial discussion in response. Just be civil and keep it nice. Have a good exchange of ideas, and it's really the closest thing that we're going to have to a discussion in this course, so enjoy it a little bit. Use the knowledge that you've gained to make a good argument. We'll see what you have to say.